Control schemes are one of the most important parts of a video game. It's how we interface with them, how we manipulate our character through the spaces that they inhabit. In 3D adventure games, they're usually all the same. The controls of the character are based on the camera angle. Breath of the Wild works as an example here. Link automatically turns around so his back is facing the camera and then moves in the direction you input on the joystick in relation to it. If you press left, he starts walking to the left and facing that direction. It's serviceable, but not particularly interesting. This has been the standard for 3D game design for a very long time, dating back to Super Mario 64 at the very least, and that game codified so much of what we understand about 3D movement. There is another way to move in 3D spaces though, one that's often neglected by people or written off as old and outdated. That is tank controls, something that was pioneered by the survival horror genre and also Grim Fandango for some reason. Tank controls are where your character doesn't move in relation to the camera, but in the direction they're facing. You have to make them face the direction you want them to run in by holding left or right, and then hitting forward to actually move in that direction. It's an interesting concept for a control scheme that I think is often unfairly derided. Sure, tank controls seem to be surpassed by full 3D movement, but they evoke a feeling that no other control scheme can. There's a grounded kind of realism to them, a connection to the character, one that makes you feel a little crushed under their weight. The clunkiness of the tank controls can add to the atmosphere of a game in superb ways that a normal control scheme simply couldn't. Silent Hill 2 is just one of the greatest games ever made. The oppressive atmosphere of the town really works with how grimy and old every texture appears, due in part to the hardware and the fog that's set in at all times. It wouldn't really be the same without tank controls though. The fact that you have to commit to what direction you're moving in before you move in it, or your attacks being slow and difficult to switch into, makes it all feel a lot more confining. The town would feel substantially less dangerous without this playstyle. I know this for certain because the game lets you turn off tank controls if you want. It's too fluid and freeing, and the animations also just look wrong when you do them. It's not a very fun way to play the game since the camera angle changes so frequently you have to constantly change the way you're moving with the stick. In the original, holding forward is all you need to get through hallways. Moving freely is just not what the game was made for and definitely doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like Silent Hill 2, an oppressive game about tight spaces and corridors. I think that tank controls are too often overlooked. For something that was a huge part of the survival horror genre at one point, one that actually added a lot of tension to the experience, I think that they deserve more respect than they get. In some situations, they're much more interesting to use than a more standard control scheme. Whatever the case, I hope we get to see a game with tank controls in the near future, or I can just play Grim Fandango again. I'm up for it. This has been Arcade Jim Relaxing, who doesn't quite know why they're called tank controls, signing up. Thank you for watching.